Hi, I'm Garm1, and this is Midgardy RPG's cool crowdfunding show. Here today with Marc Schubert. How's it going?
It's going well. It's Thursday evening. Sun's been shining. Kid was busy, so hard to complain.
Yeah, 9 p.m. and it's still nice and bright and sunny.
Yeah, I had to close my blinds, otherwise you would have had like a nasty, like bright glare over my head, which I definitely don't need being bald.
Yeah, I've learned to just accept that like that section of my camera feed is just going to be a white chunk.
Yeah.
As you can see, this place is perpetually under construction, so not much I can do. Um,
No.
so your current project is Pride Volume One Dice. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it started shortly after my original ice cream dice Kickstarter kind of ended, and even as I was beginning to show those initial prototypes over the months leading up, 8 months roughly leading up to the campaign launch, uh, I kept getting asked like, "Are you going to do Pride dice? Have you ever thought about designing Pride dice?" And my initial response was very much no. Like, there's other creators out there that are already doing it. Do we really need someone else, cluttering up that particular field? And at the time, I was still identifying as 100% heterosexual, so that was also part of it. Was I was trying to kind of, like, do I need to do this? And recently, over the last few months or so, probably longer, I've come to identify as demi, and the people just kept, like, more and more people asked, if I was going to do Pride, if I was going to do Pride. And eventually, I realized that if there's this many people asking me, and this is, as my platform on Twitter is growing, um, obviously there's a want for it and a need for it. And if they're trusting, like, if they're asking me, they obviously trust me to do right by how, whatever flags I decide to do. So I decided to go alphabetically, roughly, and stop at five, because my first one, by the time it was all said and done, there was technically 16 designs because it was 8 designs and 2 finishes. And then the, like, literally thousands upon thousands of combinations that could have been made, with the add four at the end of that. Like, it was a it was a much more complex beast than I initially thought. So I really wanted to pare this one down and, um, just like be really kind of, I don't want to say laser focused, but like very focused on what I was doing. And I went through 3 rounds of samples. I went through a couple of different design ideas. Only one sort of saw an actual prototype get done, which was it's elusive now on my set, or on my site that I call it. But originally it was done as an abstract buy. So it was a translucent dark blue, a translucent pink with a little bit of vapor on the inside, and light blue numbers. And then when you turn it, it obviously will tone purple, which is really great. I think they're gorgeous. But I had to skip over demi and intersex in my initial kind of looking through, a bunch of pride flags, because demi and intersex are both incredibly complicated if you want to do the flags justice. I think I figured out how to reverse engineer a demi flag and make it look really good. It looked best probably in the D6 because of the triangle. In intersex, the interesting thing with that one is that
It's got that
the number
circle.
will have to be just exactly right. Like, there's going to have to be an alternate way to uh, show the numbers. And like on the D20, I will probably just put the circle on the 20, because there's just too many sides, and they're too small. Like, there's there's a fine balance between wanting to honor a particular design and over designing it to the point that it's unusable. And, so like I haven't started on the samples for these, but I've got it kind of in my brain how I want to break it down. And if I can get both of these flags, if I can do them both justice, like, that is my goal ultimately, is that the people who these flags represent feel that these dice represent them. And, one of the nicest things I hear on a near daily basis is like, thank you for doing, the pan flag or the ace flag or the non-binary flag or, the lesbian and the bisexual flags. Like, thank you for giving me something to bring to my table to play and represent myself, a little bit more, or sometimes in some people's cases, a lot more, really, because they might not be out entirely, but they can still kind of be out while rolling dice, because not everyone knows what every flag is, right? So it it basically came from community, and it was driven by community. It was not what I had planned initially for my second line. I didn't have a second line entirely planned because I didn't want to be thinking too far ahead. And with enough questions and enough comments and enough people kind of being like, no, like, please do so, give us an alternative to what's out there. I felt okay doing so, and I worked hard to get the colors as on point as I could with the flags. I worked hard on talking to the factory and making them do the purple stripe in the bi flag thinner than the other, than the pink and the blue, because they're whenever you do anything mass production and you do it layered, their initial response is always to do it as evenly spaced out as possible, right? And it makes sense because that is typically the most visually pleasing. And it wouldn't have been right to do the bi flag like that. Like, in my opinion, if you're going to take a design that already exists, like the flags do, and try and represent them as true as possible, then it's one of those small details that, like, not every other dice maker is necessarily considered.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, I'm bi and I never noticed that the center stripe is a different width.
It very much is.
But maybe that's down to me. My perception of color is not very good.
Oh, that's fair then.
um, and yeah, you've got some of the, I don't want to say rarer, but like less represented ones in there. Asexual and non-binary and pan tend to not get a lot of representation, I guess is the word.
Yeah, and like that, it it was not a thought out intention. I'd be 100% lying if I said it was. I Because I have a lot of friends that identify as asexual, and I have a lot of friends that identify as some of these lesser known groups. Um, it would have been very, very easy for me to just do the flags that represent my friends. So I had to remove that subjectiveness from it, and that was why I chose to go alphabetically. And like, obviously I've skipped over. Well, I don't want to say I've skipped over, but I included mainly sexual identities versus gender identities in this first line, right? The only sort of gender identity is the non-binary, which is gender fluid as well too, which is
It's an umbrella, yeah. Covers a lot
yeah,
of various things.
yeah. So it was really cool when I first started showing the samples, and people are like, wait, you did the community lesbian flag, you're doing the ace flag, you're doing the non-binary flag, you're doing the pan flag, and then you're also doing the bisexual flag. Like, it just, what it what it really did for me was it really opened up my eyes and my perspective, um, to some of the challenges that these various communities have, right? Like, I guess I was ignorant. I mean, I know that there's always infighting within communities, and there's always, one part of the community that thinks they're better than the other. But like things like bi-erasure was like something that just blew my mind, because my some of my best friends, on the screen and beyond the screen, are bisexual, and like I've had great conversations with them where it's like, okay, like, you know, what what does bi mean to you versus, oh, you like girls and boys, and I guess that was very gendery, but I apologize for that. But like when you can like both genders, was it like I had to get informed, and thankfully I had friends that were really patient, because I they saw that my questioning and my interest was coming from an authentic point of view, or an authentic desire to learn, versus uh, a desire to categorize and pigeonhole them further.
Yeah, and yeah, the bisexual category tends to get a little bit misunderstood. I find there are definitely
Yeah.
a lot of kind of harmful stereotypes. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I not to get too deep into them, because this is not really the place to rehash like all of the standard by erasure talking points. But yeah, no, I've been to Pride a few times, and it is hard to find any of these flags. You get the standard community rainbow flag that does double duty as the gay male pride flag, because they don't really have a
Yeah.
distinct one, and then you get maybe one of the five or so lesbian flags, and that's it. Oh, bears. You get the bear pride flag as well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's it.
Right. And it's just like there's so much diversity with it within the rainbow, and like it just like humans are one of the most, if not probably the most diverse species on the planet. Like I'm sure there's a few that have more diversity than we do when you go into the insect world and stuff like that, right? But like the thought that the thought of people being binary, either one way or another way, is just like so ridiculous to me, and it always has been. And I never had words for it, because I just like I always sort of approached it, and it was terrible wording at the time, and it's still terrible wording now, so it's not how I word it now. But like I just didn't care. You were either a good person or not. you know like it's like music, right? Like music has all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different genres. I don't care. It's either good or it's not. And if it happens to be good country like Johnny Cash or Merle Haggard, awesome. And then if it's that bad twangy country that I don't like but you love, if it makes you happy, who am I to judge that? Like, it just,
I know you don't mean me specifically, but I do have a soft spot for Core Blund and Paul Brandt. So
well, Court Lund is amazing,
yeah,
right? I mean, and Paul Brandt, I think, actually, Paul Brandt's not terrible. That's I've heard a few songs. Was funny. My wife's best friend's husband worked on the Garth Brooks tour when he came. Or no, he helped with the lighting for the new stadium here in Edmonton. And as a thank you, they gave him Garth Brooks tickets. And he sent his wife, who's my wife's best friend, and she called up the day of the concert and she's like, "Hey, we've got like really good Garth Brooks tickets. Do you want to go?" So I was like, "Well, I don't know. Like, we had a little one at the time." I looked at her and I said, "If you don't go, I'm going." And she was shocked. Like, she was like just so surprised. And I was like, "Garth Brooks, I've never seen him, but I know he puts on a killer show, and you'd be stupid to pass this up. So for real, if you don't go, I'm going." It's like, "Well, she's my best friend." I'm like, "Go, have fun." And like, she came back and she's just like, "Holy crap, that was a good show," And country gets a bad name, like many genres do, because of like what gets drilled into us over the radio, right? Like, you hear the same songs on any radio station, regardless of genre, 15, 20 times a day. And it's like, some you crank and some you're just like, oh, when's it going to be over? That's how I feel about Our Lady Peace. I used to like them, but like, as I've gotten older, like, they come on the radio and I'm just like, just mute. I can't do it anymore.
Our Lady Peace is a really album by album one for me. They're one that samples a bunch of Ray Kurzweil stuff. I absolutely adore that one. I don't remember the name of it offhand. Um, I remember one of the songs is Arcade 2029, but like that one is fantastic. But the rest of their stuff, yeah, not keen on. No offense to any Our Lady Peace fans out there,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah,
You love what you love, and we love what we love, and that's just all there is to it. I always think about, because I'm like, if someone were to go through like my phone looking at music, there would probably be equal parts like, huh, you listen to that, and equal parts, oh, you actually listen to that. So
yeah. My best unpopular music opinion is I don't really like the Shakira song "Hips Don't Lie." I finally heard it for the first time like a couple months ago, and it was probably the most grating thing I've ever heard in my life. And several people were horrified by this. I'm just like, I can't. It's awful. If somebody else likes it, great. I'm not
yeah,
keen.
yeah, it's and it like, it's that way with everything, and like art so much in particular, right? Like, art is entirely subjective. There are there are wonderful pieces of art, music, movies, etc., that like people just love and people want to share with you, and you go and you watch them, or you listen to them, or you read them, or whatever, and you just kind of come back and you're like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
One of the ones for me was like, everyone hyped up Reservoir Dogs for years, and I watched it. I'm like, it's okay. I'm not ever going to actively seek to watch it again. And
I
it's also not the worst movie I've seen.
I quite liked it, but yeah,
Well, I'm sure had it not been hyped the way it was, I would have gone in with reasonable expectations, right? Like, I think that's the other thing too, is like, you get something hyped up enough, and all of a sudden it's like, it has a bar that is really hard to hit.
yeah.
You know,
Like Reservoir Dogs is good. It's not gonna change your life. It's not gonna like fill
yeah,
you with fantastic revelations about how to live. It's a pretty good movie.
yeah, and like, I'm not a huge Tarantino fan. Like I saw Natural Born Killers the year that it came out, around my birthday. I love Pulp Fiction. I think Pulp Fiction is just like such a weird movie in so many ways, and it was like, Pulp Fiction is a movie that I would watch again, and I wouldn't necessarily. I'm not going to tell everyone that it's the greatest movie in the world, but I'm also not going to tell them it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's. Have you ever seen The Room?
I haven't in its entirety. I've seen clips. I've heard of it. I have
It is.
unfortunately not had the opportunity.
Oh man, it is one of the like So is it no? It's the Garno. So the Garno used to. I don't know if they're going to when everything kind of gets up and running full steam again. But they used to do a monthly showing of it, and it achieved a cult like status here. And I don't know if like this cult like status is carried on in theaters around the world. Like I know the movie itself has a cult like status, but like here in Edmonton, it was very similar to like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where people would come in with props. There was like you sit and you watch the movie for like 5 to 10 minutes with everybody, and you already know like the lines where everyone's gonna just like rise up and like say it. Like meanwhile in San Francisco is one of the big ones. Or everyone likes to like mock the pictures that are on the mantelpiece because they didn't take out the like uh, placeholder photos from the frames, which I think is hysterical.
It's way
And
weirder than that. I actually know the story behind that one. It's to furnish the sets. They sent some of the set designers to like nearby thrift shops, basically, and just grabbed as much of that stuff as they can. So those aren't
oh,
even like placeholder pictures. Those are random real people's families and stuff.
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so good. So note to anyone who's watching, if you or your ex or your family decides to offload a whole bunch of photos to a thrift shop, you might turn up in a cult movie.
it's a real thing that could happen.
Man, could you imagine if you're like you're sitting there and you're like, that looks like my mom. Just wait.
That'd be the
Can,
most distracting thing in the world for me.
can you rewind that? Mom, why is there a picture of you and dad on in this movie? What movie? The Room. Never heard of it. Are you smoking the wacky tobacco again, son? No, no, mom. Right? Like,
Yeah,
oh God.
verging
I
wildly
like,
back towards the
yeah.
this started out as a very extended metaphor that just kind of like wandered off into the woods and is now currently trying to pull its foot out of where it's broke through the ice in a river. Um, how did you settle on this particular lesbian flag? Because, like I alluded to, there's like five, 10.
You know what? I talked to a few people um, that identify with the various flags that that I ended up, designing, so to speak, and releasing. And when I started doing the research for the lesbian flag, someone had popped up into my comments and was like, "It would be really amazing if you did the lipstick lesbian flag. Like even if you just did it with red numbers or whatever, right?" And someone instantly popped up afterwards and was like, "Hey, just so you know, like that flag was designed by a TERF, and and it's not really used anymore." And so I started asking, like, what would be the good flag to use then? Like, what is the flag that properly represents your community? And I was shown the 9 bar one. The 9 bar one, I can't remember who designed it right now. Like I know it was a community design, but someone kind of owns the designership of it. Um, they have stated explicitly that no one is to use the 9 bar one for products. And then they gave the 5 bar community one. They're like, you are welcome to use this one. This one is public and do what you will with it. But like this one is, they weren't taking ownership per se, but I think they were. I think they were more trying to protect it, right? So that if someone did go and turn it into a symbol of turfism, uh, like what happened with the lipstick lesbian one, ultimately they could reclaim it back by having the full 9 bars. So that was so yeah. In conversations with some of my friends that identify as lesbian, um, and that particular conversation, it became very clear that the flag that I presented and the flag that I did is the flag that is most considered by the community to be the lesbian flag now, right? Because, like you said, there's a lot of there's a lot of variations on it, and yeah, it came through like community conversations, both publicly and in private with people.
All right. And turfs are bad. Just if any
Turfs are terrible.
if anybody here is not up on the lingo, in which case I am genuinely kind of surprised that you're what 20, 30 minutes into an interview about Pride Dice. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but turfs are
No,
trans exclusionary radical feminists. They don't like trans people. They think trans women aren't real women. Trans men aren't real men, and they fucking suck.
yeah, and to be clear, trans women are women, trans men are men,
Absolutely.
non-binary or whatever the fuck they want to be, and no one gets to tell you how you identify. Fucking nobody. Like, oh, that bugs me. But that's a tangent that we'd go for hours on. But
Yep.
I'm not going
I think we've made our point.
to. I think so.
Yeah, and yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit about the stretch goals? I mean, one of them I am obviously quite familiar with, but we'll get to that one.
Yes. Okay. So I originally wasn't going to do stretch goals. Actually, I just realized that the last time, the first Kickstarter, I was able to lift a few people up into a better. I was able to lift a few people up, and that to me is a very important part of things. I like one of the things I often say is like I have no desire to be the only one on the mountaintop. Like I want to bring people up with me, and oh crap. Oh, well. So I reached out to some, and the first person actually that I talked to was Joey Barranco, aka Nomadic, uh, because I don't have the trans flag in my first sets, and that was the single hardest design not to include. Not only because of its history, I mean, Pride was started by a trans black woman, and it just, and I have good friends that are trans, and like my my godchild is starting to transition. Like there's there's a lot of meaning and a lot of importance to the trans flag to me, but um, so it was important for me to have a voice in the trans community take part in this. And Nomadic and I have become pretty decent friends over the last couple of years. And I couldn't think of a single better person that I would want to write a one shot that was, pride focused and geared both towards like teens to help them explore their identities or identify their identities better, or just actually get to be their identities at a game table. Um, so he was the first one that I reached out to, and he was definitely interested, and ultimately said yes. We had to wait on a couple of things so that he could get the okays where he needed to get the okays to be part of what I'm doing. Um, and then obviously you're familiar with Zio incredibly well, good friend, and obviously a Midgardian. So Zio and I have been in like trying to get her designs done as pins, and we just hadn't got there yet. So I approached her and I asked her if I could use her rainbow design since I didn't have a specific like Pride Rainbow flag design and turn it into a pin. Thankfully, she said yes. And, you know, I'm ecstatic about how the pin came out. I can't wait till I actually have the sample in my hand. It's going to be a bit for that, but when I do, oh boy. Working with Brittany Hay again, aka Friendly Neighborhood Dungeon Mom. She did the D4 dice bags for my first one, and she does amazing graphic design, and it's something that a lot of people don't always know about her. Like it's not sort of her
Flagship offering.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And people love stickers. I love stickers, and you know, I wanted to be able to offer people something that was worth reaching those stretch goals for. So getting Brittany to design a bunch of stickers around the dice that I designed was super fun. I'm super stoked and didn't even initially notice it because I just didn't. Was that the lesbian dice is a trans lesbian, right? It's a line with a feminine mane, and it's amazing. And the toucan is uh, freaking sweet with its rainbow colored beak. And then Anthony, aka Talon and Claw, he and I got connected back in October when I was in Germany for Spiel. I was lamenting, and I would never lament this again, but that there's a certain brand's boxes at Spiel that looked nice, but they were so horrendously priced. They were priced the same in euros as they were in American dollars. So when you switch that into Canadian, you're talking almost $2.50 per dollar, right? And we're talking like $110 for a seven, set vault. I
Yeah.
was like, I can't. There's no way I will. No matter how much money I make, I'm never going to justify that. Like that's just too much. And someone was like, "Hey, Talon and Claw, can you help him out?" And Anthony sent me one of his Council of Seven boxes, and then he also sent me another one that holds two seven sets, and in the middle you can either hold your minis or you can use a small dice tray. And the workmanship is absolutely fantastic. And Anthony and I started talking because I like working with smaller businesses. There's no need to basically like pump up the people that are already pumped up, in my opinion. Like there's certain companies, and I mean it's weird because I think in some areas I'm kind of one of those companies by perception, but that's besides the point. So working with Anthony was just freaking awesome. And then he's got his whiskey. Well, I don't know when this is going to air, so it might be over. But he just did his whiskey dice vault Kickstarter and was incredibly successful with that. So he initially did a hand made rainbow wood thing. Actually, I've got that one right beside me. So there is like this one, which is inlaid with a bunch of different woods. And then he did the full rainbow Spectraply one, which is super cool. So basically they just take birch veneer. The company takes birch veneer, dyes them all the different colors, glues them all, compresses them all together, and then you work with that as if it were any other piece of wood. So we're doing a council of 11 of those because all my sets are 11 sets. 7 sets are great, but I play rogues almost exclusively. So like I always need the extra D6 for sneak attack. Like I'm like, and I hate when you're floundering around and like the DM's like, you've got advantage, you've got disadvantage. You're like, crap, where's my other D20? Like if you've got 11-piece sets, you're set for the first few levels of playing. So let me see, and I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. And then when we hit 100, well, if I mean, judging by the way the numbers, it does definitely look more like a when we hit 137. That officially breaks the total raised in my first Kickstarter, and I talked to my factory and figured out that basically at $137,000, I can get 35 mil D20s made in my Pride designs, so I can throw one of those in with every set. So essentially, it's going to become a 12-piece set with a when we hit 137 with a two regular D20s and 35 mil.
And that's the famous big gay D20, is it?
No, no, the big gay D20 is not a stretch goal. The big gay D20 is a beast. It is a 55 mil handmade resin, super bright colors. We tried to go neon and we didn't quite hit it, but like the colors are pretty damn vibrant. And so it's made by the same crew who does my fulfillment. They're also the same people behind Fathom Dice, his solar system line. I don't know if you've seen that, but those those are some dice that are absolutely insane. They're also the people behind Tabletop Loot's Astral Anomalies line as well.
Oh, holy hell! Those solar system ones are sick.
Yeah, the Fathom dice, that's the solar system ones are insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so yeah, so basically, I I've worked with this crew long enough and in enough capacity that I wanted to do something really incredibly fun and also pay respect to the history of Pride. So it's based on the first rainbow Pride flag, designed by Gilbert Baker way back when, and the first flag had 8 bars, including the hot pink at the top. And basically, what happened was those colors were too hard to mass produce, so they brought it down to the standard flag that we're all accustomed to now and used to now. So the two different colors are the turquoise and the hot pink, um, and the molds that I'm using and the typeface that I'm using. The typeface is also called Gilbert, and it was designed with respect to Gilbert Baker, and it I love them. I can't like I don't even know how much these things weigh, but they're all getting a custom jewelry box kind of display case, like, because I had this moment of like, man, these dice are really cool. Oh crap! Like, what am I gonna give them to people in? I can't ask people for a crazy amount of money and just send them this big honking big gay D20 in a plastic bag, right? So I was like, okay. So I'm waiting on the box samples. Those are being worked on. I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting on a few different samples to actually get to me. But obviously, with the way the world is right now, like shipping is slow, and I'm just gonna wait till everyone over the till my crew in China has samples of everything to ship to me, because I'd rather get it all done in one shipment than a shipment here and a shipment there. Like, it just makes no sense. Uh, for the final kind of stretch goals, I have some ideas, and I'm not I'm not sure how realistic they are to execute. Oh yeah, and there's the blessed tokens, which were cracked at 40K, because I got myself a really cool laser cutter, and I wanted to I really wanted to actually put a little piece of me in these things, because I mean, so much of this is like made by other people and factory made, and like I just wanted like something that I actually made and designed beyond the dice, like to go to backers. Plus, there's a lot to be said for a useful token, right? Like where you're like, oh, you've been blessed, and people almost always forget that they've been blessed, and it's one of those things where like when I sort of was like, hey, what kind of tokens would people like? And I posed the question on Twitter. People are like, blessed, dude, please, please, just like we always forget it. So yeah, the last three, I've got some ideas. I'm going to talk to some people about some of them and see kind of where they go. And yeah, I don't know. Like one of the one of the tough things, one of the tough things with this campaign is that obviously, like these dice are typically used in D&D, and D&D is not a company we're support. Well, Wizards of the Coast is not a company we're supporting right now because the whole Mike Merles thing. Like, I'm not going to get into it, but you know, sheltering bad humans and saving bad humans from criticism or job loss because they're a quote unquote legend is just it's not a good way to run a business. So it's been I made a conscious decision that if I was going to tag anything D&D like on Twitter, I was also going to tag it with the Fire Mike Merles because I want people to understand that I'm not okay with that situation at all. And I also have a business to run, so it's like it's a tough balance, because D&D gets eyes on things, and my dice can be used for pretty much any RPG out there, except for the one that the Germans like, Dark Eye.
Yes, Dark Eye is one of the major German ones.
Yes, with 8d20s, I was like, holy crap,
Oh
and
my
like
god.
like super focused. Like, do you know anything about the d20s for the game?
I don't. I think I read the
Okay.
like base description of the setting, but that's it.
Okay, so the D20s, and I've never played Dark Eye, so like this is just off of some preliminary research that I did before I went to Spiel last year. So I was like, could I do it? Like, could I actually, you know, produce and put together a Dark Eye set before going? Uh, and I looked, I'm like, holy crap, this is ridiculously complicated. So each D20 represents damage to a specific body part.
All right.
Yeah, so like when you're rolling them, you're like, okay, I did 5 damage to their right arm. I did, 18 points of damage or whatever to their left leg. And it's just like, man, I mean, we all like hearing dice roll, don't get me wrong. And there's it's a really nice clatter to be had with that. But it's just like, why do you need that many? Oh, that's the other fun thing too about the 55, but about the big gay D20 is that it's actually standard numbered. It's not a spin down. So it can actually be used in game. A lot of the larger dice are typically done in spin down formats, which I didn't even know. I was just like, I'm making a big gay D20. Like, it needs to be numbered like a D20. And then people are like, dude, I can actually like play with this. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, it's going to be a massive table denter, but
I mean,
that's
you
on you. That's not on me.
yeah, you can theoretically play with a spin down die. It's like slightly less random, but
Yeah.
that's it. Not in the realm of like actually matters. In my humble opinion, I am not a dice guy.
I 100% agree with you. That's a whole other tangent. It's like people who like there is definitely a distinct difference between like weighted or like horribly imbalanced dice
Yeah.
versus a die that is like favors a particular number because the amount of times that you have to roll for that favoritism to really have an impact
Assuming that
is
they're even like mildly quality. Like
yeah.
yeah, I am deeply familiar with all of the like the weird intricacies of the weighting of it, like bubbles in the plastic and all that fun stuff, and people who insist on only buying translucent dice so that they can tell it's
Yeah.
perfectly But like in
Well,
practice, it probably doesn't super matter. But if you
no.
want to, go for it.
Well, like I always wonder like how serious are these tables to play at? Because like when I run a table, I don't like if I see your die always rolling on a 20, I'm gonna call you out. But like other than that, if you roll 7 times and you get 6 20s, I'm just gonna assume that you had a lucky day. Like
Yeah.
the fun is the important part, the storytelling. But I mean, once again, everybody plays their own way, and I'm not here to judge, right? But like for me, the way I play, meh, I will.
I do have a
Balance is not important.
mhm.
Yes,
I do have a question on the topic of dice for games that are not Dungeons and Dragons. Uh,
sweet.
Actually, I have two comments on that matter. The first is, but they banned a bunch of 30-year-old Magic cards. That makes up for everything, right? Uh,
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
if you heard about that, but
I did because one of my group chats on Twitter, um, one of the people there is a massive Magic fan. She goes by Infinite Tokens, and she makes these really cool dry erase cards that you can literally just use for tokens all the time, right? Like it's what she has is amazing. Um, but she's a huge Magic fan and has been for years. And there's a couple other Magic fans. I personally can't stand it. I have tried multiple times. I've even played Commander, so I didn't have to worry about the whole deck build concept. And it just doesn't do it for me. But yeah, like, you know, good on banning some cards that probably should have been banned, decades ago.
I mean, some of them are like kind of a stretch, but the one with
I
the actual art done by a neo-Nazi showing a bunch of Klansmen, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? I
yeah,
can.
yeah. It's like,
But it reeks of performativity,
oh
and
yeah,
this is gonna damage any sponsorship prospects in the future. But that's life. Um,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
it reeks of performativity, which is weird because they're also donating their share of the profits from the DM's Guild bundles that go to the NAACP and all that. And like that's
yeah.
a way better, actually tangible charitable thing. So I don't know why they're making a big deal out of the one that looks really lame. But
Because at this point in time, like, I mean, I can say even as us, like, once again, gonna go back to perception, right? Like a small business with a perception of being bigger than I am, like there is a certain pressure, and like with everything that Wizards of the Coast is getting with with people wanting Mike Merle's gone, removed from Wizards permanently, not dead, just fired. Okay, just like let's be clear here, removed. Um, it some of the stuff that corporations and companies are going to do is performative, 100%. Some of it will come from a genuine place and still be viewed as performative. It is like I talk about pandemic emotions because for me, I'm a relatively emotional person to begin with. Like I'm fairly passionate. I care about a lot of things, and I care about a lot of things a lot. And like during this pandemic and this lockdown, which in Alberta has been a lot easier than a lot of places, like I'm way more sensitive, and part of that sensitivity is also being a little bit more jaded, a little bit more sarcastic. I don't let that part out very much because it's not a part that I want to share. It's not a part that does anyone any good. But like I think that's part of the people seeing things as performative or labeling things as performative is that there's this jaded sarcasm that a lot of us have towards corporations in general because we've seen them screw over everybody. And I mean, while we're talking about let's like what I've enjoyed seeing, I don't know if you've seen this much, is the how much I get paid, like the wage transparency that's going around on Twitter. Like, bravo for people sharing. We will never know as the audience how truthful it is, but we have to take people at their word, you know, sometimes. And like when you see those wage disparities, and like so much of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and the trans rights movement and like all these movements that are coming together and just like essentially taking the world by the balls as best they can, which is amazing. Um, maybe the throat. It's not gender the world, but yeah, I'll get my point. It's
The
like,
relevant genitalia, yes.
yeah, um, it's like watching people start questioning things in a real way, and like I was watching Critical Bard's Black AF round table, the second one that he did, um, and Brandon Swords Fall and one other gentleman. I couldn't read his name on my phone, unfortunately, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. But they were all having this conversation about speeding and how they won't and how they route their drives to work and stuff to avoid cops or to avoid police stations, and how they will only go like 3 to 4 miles over the speed limit, because if they get caught or if they get stopped, they're literally afraid to lose their lives. And it hit me so hard. Like the like on a general level, I'm aware and cognizant of my privilege being a middle-aged white male who mostly presents as hetero. Um, I can walk most places and not be afraid for my life. And most of the time, if I get stopped by a cop, I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm coming home to my family.
Yeah.
And and it was so powerful because it's such a mundane thing coming from someone who has that privilege. Like it was just this weird moment of like I speed by like typically 5 to 10 kilometers over the speed limit. Like I'm not overly a speeder, but at the same time, there have been times in the past where like I mean a prime example is I was on a road trip and I went 60 through a school zone, not knowing because I'd never been through this town before. Cop pulls me over, points to literally, I kid you not, the biggest school zone sign in all of Canada. It is literally painted on the school wall. I mean, I'm talking like this thing is probably 12 to 15 feet high and 12 to 15 feet across. Like it's massive.
Well, there's the problem. You weren't looking for a mural. You were looking for a
Well,
sign.
well, that's it, right? But like I got stopped. He pointed out the sign, pointed out how quick, like how fast I was going. I apologized because I did feel terrible. I hate people who speed through school zones. And I went on my way, and like the fact that I had that privilege, the fact that I'm born with that privilege is like it's it's just mind-boggling
Yeah. And
how many things that we go through on a day-to-day basis that we don't acknowledge that our privilege, plays a part in things. Anyways,
yeah,
that's a conversation I could get into.
yeah,
Uh, yeah.
I definitely have some understanding on that one. As I'm sure you've noticed, I am also a pasty white motherfucker. And
You are.
all of my most of my experiences with cops have been pretty positive, but that's because I am a pasty white motherfucker. And I
Yeah.
am pretty aware of that. I've only been thrown in the back of a cop car once in my life, and I would quite like to keep it that way. Um, I'm not gonna get into why on stream.
No, no,
Guess in the
no.
comments. I won't tell you if you're right because you won't be. But yeah. Um. Anyway, my other mention.
The person who gets closest though will get a response, which will be no comment.
Yeah. Um. My other point about dice and things that aren't used for D&D is, would you ever consider doing fate dice in the future for Pride dice if you're familiar with them? If not, I have a set
You
right
know
there I
what?
can grab.
I I am familiar with them. Uh, not not to the point that I own a set yet. I have definitely considered doing that though, because I know they're like I know it's the Fate system, right, that they're used with, correct?
Fate, fudge, and a couple other things. Yeah,
Wait, Fudge is a system?
yeah, it's what fate is derived from.
Oh my god, I never knew that. I never knew that. That's awesome. Okay,
If you do your ice cream dice again, you should have a fudge flavor that also comes in the fudge dice style.
yes, right. So have I considered doing designs that are usable in other systems, particularly Fate and Fudge. Now that I know Fudge is also a system, because people always talk about it as Fate and Fudge, so I was like, oh, okay. Like I haven't played any games with the system, so maybe if you
Yeah,
roll enough fates, you get to fudge your roll, right? That was how I,
I
that
love
was
it.
that was that was honestly what I thought. So yes, I would consider it, and ultimately, what it kind of comes down to is, from a business standpoint, I have a minimum that I have to produce, right? And I'm not going to say that that's always expensive, but it's also not cheap,
Yeah.
So it'd be something that I would consider designing and then possibly running like a pre-order for, and if pre-orders essentially cover the cost of the production, then cool. And then I sell whatever's left. And if it takes 10 years, well, it probably won't, because I'm sure by year 5, I'll just be like, okay, I've got like 600 of these sets left. Everybody gets fate dice with their order.
Those are something you can't whip out into the crowd because they hurt. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of our viewers are super familiar with the economics of production and economy of scale and all that fun stuff. But suffice to say, the more of something you produce, at least when it comes to mass manufacture, the cheaper it is, and that's an important thing to
Yeah.
remember on small scale projects. That's why handmade dice are really expensive. That's why short run dice are really expensive.
Yes, exactly.
Um, yeah, and I guess going off of that, and I know this is very late into the interview. If anybody is still watching, thank you. I appreciate it. I love that
Yeah.
watch time. Um, this is not your first rodeo. You've done
No.
one Kickstarter before, or is it two?
Yes.
Yeah, just one.
One.
And I've seen the results of that in person. They are wonderful. I am not a dice guy, as I said, but I was still like, I wish I'd bought some. And
Yeah.
yeah, so you have experience in the area, and they can reasonably trust that you know what you're doing here. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Because is there a question, or are we just chatting? Because if we're just
Nope, that was kind of all I had to say. Just like,
okay. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like everything that could go wrong in the first one literally did. Like my molds were screwed up, my D8s were misnumbered. Like there was a lot of obstacles, and then just as my team started shipping out of Wuhan, China, was when COVID hit, and as it got more and more widespread and became a global pandemic, it was challenging. Uh, and but I'm someone who likes to learn and take lessons. So a lot of people, if they were part of the first one and jumped into a couple of the live streams I did, they'd know that I have a failed Kickstarter back from 2013. I want to do a coffee advent calendar uh, showcasing Canadian independent roasters, because there's only a couple of coffee advent calendars out there, One is a pre-ground thing from the UK, and the other one is a $200. Well, I don't know if it even ran last year, but it's from somewhere in Scandinavia. I think it's from like Finland, and it's literally 200 bucks Canadian. I was like, and I couldn't find either of these when I came up with my idea. So I ran. I attempted to crowdfund it twice. Once I failed miserably, and I took everything that I learned from that one and applied it to the ice cream dice one. And then I've taken everything that I've learned from the ice cream dice one, like minimizing how many things I'm offering, minimizing the combinations. Like there's no finish choices. Sorry, you're getting glossy. A lot of people are like, "Oh, are you going to offer matte?" No. And there's a real simple reason for it. I love my matte dice. They are they're some of the nicest dice you will ever have in your hand. And they got outsold 5-1. So it doesn't make sense, and
Economy of
I,
scale, like I said, yeah.
well, yeah, right? Like it, and it, yeah. So like learning and like refining things kind of is like what I really want to do with this one was kind of bring it down to something that if I had to do it myself from my basement, like I could do it, and ideally I won't have to. I mean, I do have my fulfillment team still, and they managed to fulfill over 90% of the first one within 30 days. And this was like as COVID starting and as Christmas is hitting North America, and for a long time I didn't actually look at the numbers at like how many people got their dice, because all I was hearing in the comments and stuff was like, I haven't got my dice, I haven't got my dice. And like I'm tracking these things, and the tracking we used was not great. It workable, but not perfect, because basically when the dice would leave China, the only time that you would get an update as the backer was when they went through customs. And then that's when you would find out that your dice are actually on their way. So we're improving tracking for the next one, because not being able to actually track where the dice are leaves people like frustrated. If you pay good money for something, like you want to know where it is. Even if it's later than it's supposed to be, you're like, okay, if it's stuck at customs for, the last 2 months, it's stuck at customs. Like, you know, I can't control pandemic, I can't control customs, and I can't control shipping in this situation, you know. So my wife's like, don't talk about the bad things from the first one, but like, really?
I mean,
I
it's
learned.
important for people to know that you have experience with the things that will go wrong. And oh
Yeah,
boy,
and
that is far from the worst story that has come out on this show.
yeah, well, and it's like I did everything the first one 100% like by myself. It came from the school group that I worked with. Um, Midgardia, like you guys have been a huge support of, Forging Heroes, which is still alive. Um, just very quiet right now, because I think essentially it's going to kind of just get wrapped up into Ice Cream Dice at some point in time. It makes sense. Or I'm going to hand it over to you guys, because some of your team are just amazing with it. Anyways, but like I was working with like playing games with these kids, and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to get them custom dice. Like, how hard can it be? And I looked at handmade dice, right? And I looked at handmade dice. I was like, well, I don't have, $50 to $80 a set to spend on, 8 to 10 kids. Like, sorry, I'm an educational assistant. I'm not even a teacher, so I'm not making money, really. And then I was like, well, what if I just got like a standard, 2-color set made? And the way I always explain it is like it's a rabbit hole that I never came out of. fell down hard. And I was like, I kids love ice cream. I love ice cream. And I started looking for ice cream dice, and like I was like, I probably was never more surprised in doing research and coming up with very little results than I was when I was like, how can how is someone like not just hitting this, because it's like flags, right? Pride flags or any flags. Like the design is already done for you. All you gotta do is try and match the colors, So it just, but yeah, like it came from those kids, and so many people believed in it, and like it. I mean, it 100% changed my life. Like I'm not going to say it changed it financially. It helped financially, but I didn't. I paid myself up little under 6 grand last year, right? And this is off of like $136,000 looking Kickstarter, because that's not actually what the final number was, because people cancel all the time, right? And that's fair. But like the Kickstarters don't pay the creators as much as people think they do often, and it's hard not to think when you see a number like 136,000, you're like, oh, dude's only doing like X amount of designs. Like, how much can it really cost? But once again, it goes down to minimum orders, economy of scale, and then I'm paying my like my stretch goal makers, and I nobody works for me for free. Like everybody gets paid in one way or another, and because I don't believe in anyone working for free. Like even if you want to leverage a donation deal where like instead of getting paid a wage, have the creator donate in your name or donate to a charity you choose, even if it's in their name. Like that's what I'm doing with Joey. Like no medic, he's like, dude, I'm not taking money from you. I'm like, okay, I have your email. I can e-transfer you. And then in my brain, I'm like, and he doesn't have to accept. Okay, got to work around this, you know? So I was like, dude, when we're done and I've got all my final numbers run, like, we're going to talk about a donation to a charity that you care about, that matters to you in your name. Because, like, being a former designer, I just, I, I can't ask people to work for free. It's not right.
Exposure doesn't pay the bills. You know it. I know it.
Oh, dude, there's this guy who once put up on Twitter, and I'm just going to go on this tangent really quickly because exactly, exposure doesn't pay the bills. So this dude was like, I don't know anything about making like Bitcoin, but someone should make a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency named exposure. And then when people are like, oh, I'll pay you an exposure, you can actually send them a bill.
My
I'm
God.
like it cracked me up. And I think about it every couple of months, like it just kind of rattles through my brain. I'm like, man, I wish I had the knowledge to do that. So if you're out there, if you know how to like create a cryptocurrency, please create one called exposure so that artists can get paid in exposure.
That's
Please.
really good.
Isn't it?
Also,
It's
as somebody who's done cryptocurrency stuff, don't do it. It's rough. I made out incredibly well based on sheer coincidence, but
nice.
don't become one of the people who invest $10,000 in Bitcoin. It's not gonna help you. You will probably lose all of it. I just happened to be looking at the charts on that day that it dropped down to like 3.8k American, and I was like, great, thank you. And half of like the profits from that paid for my friggin' new video card.
Nice.
Thank you
Well,
to whatever idiot was selling at 3.8k.
like that's the funny thing is like when it comes to any of those like fluctuating currencies, right? And like it's the same thing with like stocks, right? Like you sort of have to go into it with a number that you're willing to sell at and not look again, right? You're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, the stock that I bought for 35 cents is now at a buck 50. Okay, that's almost a five times return. Okay, cool. Sell,
Yep.
or maybe you're waiting until it gets to $35 or whatever, right? But like,
And that's what I did was like, yeah, bought at, when I saw it was crashing, I set a value for like, all right, I'll put some money in if it hits this. And I am not a man with a ton of spare money. This is just right after I got my tax return, so that all worked out. And I was like, all right, if it doubles in price, I'll sell it off. And I did wait a little bit longer than that, but then I needed a new video card, so
yeah,
But yeah. Pride dice. They're dice made in the various kinds of pride flags. There were cool
yes,
stretch goals, and yeah.
and yeah, yeah. If you've been hanging out with us this long, I've officially broken their record for length of interview.
Yep.
Unless he edits me down, which I would not blame him. He
Uh,
might, and if he does, he'll edit this part out so that you don't know that he edited me down. But thank you for all the support right from the get-go. Like, this really is a community-focused project, and I'm working with people in the community, to bring you the best things that I can, like quality, fun. It's a rough time right now for a lot of us. I don't think anyone is really skipping around going, woohoo, everything's great. And if they are, who knows? More power to them. But like community, we're seeing the power of community right now in protests and in the Black Lives Movement and in Trans Lives Matters, and people calling out people that would have normally never been called out in our community. Keep doing it. Support however you can. If you don't have money, cool. Boost a voice. Tell an artist how much you like their stuff, because you know what? That goes far. And if you can give, find the organizations that align with who you are and your core and your morals and your ethics, and support them. No one should tell you, well, people will always tell you, this is a great charity, or this is a great charity. Doesn't mean that they're not, but they might not be for you.
Yeah.
So if you're putting your money somewhere, like, put it somewhere you're confident is actually going to go to the people that it's meant to be used for. There's a lot of charities that pay their board members a lot of money, and the money just doesn't trickle down to the people, or the money actually only does trickle down rather than like floods down to the people who actually need it.
Not naming names, but I'm sure we all have ones that come to mind.
Yeah, I've got a couple, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if I say their names, they'll sue me. So because that's the other thing their funds go to.
Yes, that's right. Good lawyers.
Yep. And I would like to add one protest movement to that list if that's cool with you.
Oh,
The
100%.
the people of Hong Kong are still struggling against the Communist Party of China, and that's getting worse. And it's still going on. It's not over. Unfortunately, people have kind of forgotten, which is understandable given all the other things happening. But
Yeah, there are things happening beyond North America and beyond the movements that we're seeing flooding on Twitter every day.
yeah. So that about wraps up everything here from us, and just love each other. Try to be understanding. It's a hard
Yeah,
world. We're all going through a lot.
yeah. Give people as much patience as you can, um, and yeah, like, just honestly, just love the hell out of each other as much as you can,
And if you
because
like,
really we are in this together, and we're the only ones that are going to make the change.
yeah, and if you like this video, there's links below both to Marc's Kickstarter and my group's Patreon to help support this program. And if you don't have money to contribute, that's totally okay. All I ask is that you find somebody whose stuff you like and just go leave them a comment. Be like, hey man, I really like this thing you do.
Or if you got really tired of listening to me talk partway through, just be like, God, you should have shut him up. should have just brought in the like clapper and just like bam, stop it, stop it. No, leave Garm nice comments, and check out the Midgardia streams. Uh, I'm sure within the next few weeks there's probably a charity stream coming up somewhere.
Yeah, we've been raising money for the Bale Project actually all throughout
Yeah.
this month, and then
So
next month we've got Trans-Equality Society of Alberta fundraiser. So
awesome.
yeah,
So like honestly, if you came here, you probably know Midgardia, but please, like honestly, share it with your friends because there are a few streams that I've seen that have as much heart and dedication to the communities that they support as the Midgardia crew.
thanks, man. You're gonna make me blush.
You're welcome. It's true. Like you guys walk the walk, right? Like there's, and I'm not saying other streams don't, but other streams don't, right? Like,
We do what we
and,
can.
and it's, yeah, but it makes a difference, and yeah.
I
No.
appreciate that. All right. Well,
All right.
have a good night, everybody.
Good night.